Welcome to Feminine Mysteries. My name is Catalina Rivera Dois, and in today's video, I'll be sharing my personal story of perimenopause, the queen and the blood mysteries so far. As you settle in, please let me know where you're tuning in from. I always love to hear from you, and consider liking and subscribing if the content resonates. It's absolutely free and supports both the channel and my work of bringing ancient new womb wisdom back onto the world once again. Now, before I begin with my story, I have a little but much needed disclaimer to share with you. Every perimenopausal journey is unique and is spiraling us through this acceleration chamber of our own soul's curriculum. So, what I am here to share is just my story so far. It is not meant for you to compare yourself to my story or judge your own experience through the lensing I'm sharing. But the intention is for you to feel into where my experience might resonate with yours or illuminate your own journey in some way. Let's use these sharings of personal experience to illuminate where too often as women we tend to compare, judge, and see differences as personal failure. And just a gentle reminder that when we fall into these patterns, first of all, the observations we're making tend to come from, what we can see from the outside, which is never the full picture, right? Firstly. Secondly, having more or less symptoms, more or less challenges, more or less spiritual experiences from what we can see compared to someone else does not in any way reflect on your worth, your spiritual alignment or awakening, or in any other form of judgment or classification our mind wants to create. Okay, so I'm inviting you to watch the part of you that wants to do menopause well, right? Like there's some golden standard or external checklist. None of that is real, right? That is just more, unconscious and patriarchal limiting programming. This is a time of intimate communion with our bodies, with our soul, and with life. And it will present in whichever way lends to our biggest growth and alignment, and in alignment to what we've agreed to in this life, right? So there is no way to compare it to anybody else, right? The true markers to look for here are internal, right? Am I listening to my body? Am I learning from her? Am I allowing myself to feel and remember and love and honor and release and tend to all that she's bringing up for me? Am I slowing down and making space within myself, right, for all that is me and all that's arising? Am I beginning to feel my essence? Am I feeling my calling, the unique fractal of love that I am, and that I'm here to be in the world? These are just some of the markers that we're looking for that tell us if we're on the right track, right? We will all get to the other side of this portal, but how we get there will definitely change our experience of it. And here's where the blood mysteries comes in to support us, and where I hope my sharing my story might be of support to your journey. So let me dive in. My personal story of navigating perimenopause with the blood mysteries held within this lineage so far, because again, I'm just dipping my toes in, right? So let's backtrack a little bit. I was initiated into the blood mysteries after the birth of my daughter and have been deeply listening to my womb and my blood ever since. So, because of this, for me, entering perimenopause was very distinct. It felt like an inner switch was flipped. My inner climate changed. For those who have worked with archetypes, it felt like a change in archetype, like a change into a different archetypal field. Um, that being said, that's probably not going to be the experience of most women, right? This clarity has come from many, many, many years of being deeply in tune with my inner climate and inner rhythms and energy fields. Okay. So I began to, after I felt this, like, and I remember even having that visual of like this feeling of like a switch kind of going off or being flipped, I began to feel my body responding differently. Right? Because I felt the switch, but I wasn't sure what it was at first. So often our understanding of any situation within our body and energy field comes from listening and being curious and then kind of looking back, right? So I began to feel my body responding differently. This awareness, along with what I remembered in the blood mysteries about our seasons of life, definitely helped as I started my journey. I, like everyone that heads into perimenopause, I was heading into the unknown, right? But I also knew the terrain I was heading into to some degree because of my training, because of my time in the blood mysteries and understanding of the seasons and the archetypes. So it was like, and is like going into the jungle with a map. I haven't been there before, but the map at least has some very, very helpful guideposts, right? That allows me to navigate in a more grounded way through this new terrain. So over time, since this switch happened, this inner light switch was turned on, I've experienced pretty much all the classical symptoms out there. I've experienced aches and pains, slow and steady weight gain, despite, very healthy vegetarian diet and regular exercise. I've always been an active person. Um, I've experienced the occasional night sweats, insomnia, anxiety, panic attacks, which I've never had before, right? And moments when I felt like my nervous system was just like blaring at me, like the world was ending, even when nothing was happening externally. Right. I was feeling, I've been, been experiencing emotional lability and sensitivity and anger and rage and irritability and fatigue and that mental fog, that floating where it's hard to focus, periods of time where just getting through the day felt like I was wading through concrete. And that, along with days where I'm on top of the world, where the beauty of the world is so poignant that it brings me to tears, where I am feeling like deeply connected to life and enjoying my life and feeling the gratitude of being alive and returning to big belly laughs and just lightness and sense of humor. Um, so I could talk a long time about all the different experiences. And there's like Lisa said in our last video, there is a heavy emphasis on all that shared during the stage on like the symptoms and the discomfort that arises. And it's important to be aware of that and to be able to name it because it is real, right? Very, very real and very, very felt. But again, it's not the whole picture. And I feel that what would serve you most is what I've learned so far within this stage. So the first thing I did because of my training in the blood mystery is become really still, is begin to really deeply listen both to my body and to my soul, to my womb, and that current of life that flows through us. Just wanting to understand before trying to change or try to fix anything, just seeking to understand what was happening and where I was being guided, right? And the first thing that became really clear is that my body, through all these physical changes and signals and symptoms and deep discomfort, was actually communicating with me and was guiding me into a stage of deep self-love and self-care, which makes sense. We're in a state, any stage of deep transformation requires our energy to come in and for us to really tend to the basics, right? So through all those symptoms and all that discomfort, I was forced to look at again, right? Because it changes. Look at my diet, my exercise, my rest, my nourishment on all levels, right? All of a sudden, because our, how our hormones are shifting, right? There is this very narrow band that we are being guided into, right? Of both exercise and rest, of nutrition that is high in value, where our body's getting everything that we need and we're not going hungry, but it's not an excess either. There's a shift in the proportion of the nutrients we need. There's this whole, dance that is happening in our organism that when we look at it from this lensing and from the bigger perspective is actually guiding us and training us in balance, right? It's refining our capacity and our attention to self-care, self-love, and to remain in this state of harmony and balance that is a fluid dance, because many times when we first approach these concepts of harmony and balance, we think it's static, right? Even when we talk about the merging of female and male energies, it's not a static point, right? There is it's a fluid dance between the poles, right? And that requires, again, listening and responding, being exquisitely sensitive, and our responsibility, our ability to respond to those inner promptings and changes both within ourselves and outside of ourselves to remain in the state of balance and harmony. So for me, all these things that were arising in my body, all these symptoms, all these changes were pointing me into places within my life, my routines, my structures, how I was approaching self-care that needed to be refined and upgraded, and upheld with deep integrity and attention to detail, right? So this so far, again, listening to my body, managing all that's been arising physically, right? That aspect has been taken, it feels like an intense training of balancing, listening, and honoring. And again, it's not easy. There's challenges to it. But again, otherwise we wouldn't do it, right? Otherwise we wouldn't refine these abilities, nor would we strengthen them to the level, right, that this stage of life is demanding of us. So first lesson, right, is all of this is to hone my ability to self-care, self-love, listen, and honor my body and what she needs to stay in balance, right? And it's not just my body, mind, emotion, spirit, because it's just one field, but it's our body that is anchoring those messages that come from the subtle realms in a really powerful way. And there are things here that you probably have already kind of figured out, right? The night sweats, the hot flashes, right? That's Shakti. That is literal life force energy just flooding your system, consuming, right? Patterns that no longer serve you, right? Burning through wounding, burning through rage, burning through emotions and mental patterns, unconscious beliefs, lineage stuff. Just baggage that we hold in our physical bodies and cells that are needing to be transmuted, right? So when we understand all this, it allows us understanding all this, whenever any of these symptoms would arise, it would allow me to surrender to the current and navigate it with much more ease and grace, and with the sense of not something happening to me, but something happening for me and with me, where I was part of this process of transformation. And each time I was allowed myself to surrender into that, even when it was really, really uncomfortable, it illuminated some really deep and beautiful places within. Then that leads me into like this next stage. this is a stage, as I've mentioned in previous videos, of deep release. And that was one of the first experiences of perimenopause that I received as well, is I entered into this space, just like Lisa shared, from a place of deep grief. I just moved, I'd lost the ocean and a loving community, um, and it was like it cracked open in me through that loss and that grief, all the other chapters of grief that I had in my life, right? Where, for whatever reason, I hadn't allowed myself to actually properly, fully grieve, right? Um, so again, I've talked about this stage being like a part harvest, right? And we're harvesting all of our life, both the joys and the good things and the shadows and the hurts and the pains. This stage has very much felt like a cracking open to all those places that for busy with life and moves and children and work and all the other excuses and things that kind of interfere, did not fully grieve and honor that all the change that I've gone through in my life and all that I have lost, right? So yeah, lots of grief and lots of rage, right? We, in this stage, we are tapping into, again, through the body. It's almost like just like that last week before our menstrual cycle, before our period comes, our menstruation arrives, there is this kind of magnifying glass to all that is not right in your world, be it inner world or outer world, like the things that cause irritability and rage. They're like, it's just showing you places and things within you that are dissonant, that are out of line, that are requiring your attention, that need action and change or transmutation or healing or something, right? But everything is magnified. It feels like, in many ways, this stage to me feels like that. It's like that last week of my period, but amplified and stretched out through a whole season, where so much of my inner workings, my emotions, my mental pattern, my unconscious beliefs, my lineage wounds, etc., is just being like the magnifying glass is being put on it, right? And it's being brought to the surface really powerfully and really reactively so that I can actually look at it and do something with that part of the self, right? So for me, this has been the stage of deep grief, of letting myself just be sad. Like Lisa was saying in our last video, allowing myself to come apart, to be in a whole, right? To fully grieve and fully be in that state of decomposition for all the times that I didn't let myself be there. Right? For all the times I needed that and I didn't allow myself. And that in itself has been so healing, right? It's like I'm being given another chance through each one of these minor and bigger kind of inner crises, be they physical, emotional, or mental. I'm being given the chance to tend to things that I wasn't able to tend to before. I've said this before. At this stage, we're brought into initiations not only into the archetype we're being initiated to, but anything we have not met in previous stages, right? So the wounds of the maiden, the wounds of the mother, the wounds of the sacred woman, they're all, anything I have intended to is coming up. And the blood mysteries have given me the tools and the lensing that have allowed me to just be with that, to embrace it, to be curious, to love myself in the shadows, right? Embrace myself in the shadows and allow for healing to reach those places that couldn't reach before. Doesn't mean it's comfortable, but it definitely is beautiful and transformative. And the beauty of the blood mysteries is that no matter how deep or how painful or how shameful the shadow that I'm facing into, I have this deep in my body felt sense of being held, of being supported, of having resources, of not having to do it alone, right? Because my inner gateways are open to mother. So I feel her with me because I have tended the pathways where I can communicate with my ancestors. And I've had plenty a morning that I have spent just lying outside in the grass, calling on my grandmothers to hold me through whatever it is that I'm processing, right? So just being really honest and tender. Like, this is a period of time where we're coming apart, but that coming apart can also be beautiful and tender when we have the arms to hold us. Right. So it's a period of release of grief and rage and release of pain. Oh my goodness, so much pain. This has brought me to my knees. And I'm probably going to feel the tears in my eyes already, to take the time to actually honor like all that I've been through, right? For those of you who have known me for a while, like, I tend to be a very optimistic person. I tend to look at the bright side of things. Even amongst the shadows, I'm looking for the light and the beauty and the gifts, right? While acknowledging the shadow, but like, my focus has always been there. And I realized that, because of the practice of gratitude as well, like, I'm always connected to what I'm grateful for, the things that are going well in my life. And I recognize the part of me that hasn't properly honored the challenges, right? The places in my life where I have been in deep loss and abandonment and grief, where my dreams have not come true, where I didn't receive the support I wanted, where, just the challenges. I found the places where I minimized, right? And tried to just kind of jump over to the light stuff, right? And how I was still holding, even though I've done so much work and I can pat myself on the back and acknowledge like all the work I've done, there were also these places where I was still holding on to unprocessed pain, where I hadn't fully acknowledged the breadth and scope of my life and all the challenges I've overcome, and all the challenges I've had to deal with, and all the pain that I kind of pushed into my body, and didn't fully process. Right. Because I wasn't able to in the moment, because I was in survival mode, because I was, dealing with a million things. Like, we know this place. So yeah. Yeah. So there was all that personal layer. But then there's more, right? There is a point, because again, I have the tools of the blood mysteries that, within like a couple months, like, okay, we've gone through the personal stuff pretty good, right? And I realized, oh my goodness, I am still waking up feeling anxious when I am not generally an anxious person, where I have all these tools to transmute and work with anxiety. And yet I was walking around with this feeling of just like the world coming apart. And yes, there's a part of that is the collective, where we're living in really challenging times, especially here in the United States. So there was a piece of that was just me being a very, very sensitive being, connecting into the collective, right? But that's also what that illuminated for me, is again the amount that I'd been holding in my body for my ancestors and the collective, right? Of this sense of unsafety, right? How that sensation, that feeling, that fear for our safety, right? For our security and all that that means, right? Has seeped into the tissues, the bones, the nerve endings of my being, where I could recognize that I was okay. There was nothing happening kind of externally to be worried about in my immediate life, where when I looked in my inner being, I wasn't having any weird, repetitive thoughts or negative beliefs or anything. Like, everything was quiet. And yet there was this kind of blaring sensation of fear, diffuse, the world is coming apart fear. And it allowed me to tap into, again, like the cellular memory that comes from our lineage and comes from the collective, right? And though it's uncomfortable, seeing it and embracing it allows for the transmutation to happen. And just being with it, with the tools of the blood mysteries, allowed that to eventually, with a little bit of time and love, to finally completely release, right? It's it's been amazing to see and feel how much, again, one of the things that is said a lot, like in terms of the biology, is that our cortisol levels during perimenopause skyrocket. And I had experience of that, of feeling like for no like good reason, like my nerve endings, like my inner nervous system was just like on constant alert. It was like alarms blaring, right? Didn't feel good, right? And yet, again, I could feel the truth of that being just the primordial memories, right? Imprints taken in, passed down through the bloodline and through the collective, right? That I'd been carrying around. This is not new stuff. This is old stuff that finally in this stage is having the chance to be alchemized and released. And though it hasn't been comfortable in any way or form, right? I can feel the gift of it as well. The depth of the transformation that's happening, of the release, and I'm finally reaching places where I can feel the space, right? It's having really great dreams as well, where a lot is being processed in dreams. And, you know, those confirmations, I've had so many dreams of just like going into the basement of my being and just walking through, you know, just rooms and rooms in the dark that are empty, right? Until I finally reach something else where I open the door and then a new layer of something, you know, becomes activated for me to work on. But there is, at least for myself, such a relief. I remember the relief of that dream of just, like I can go through all these layers of my basement, of the underground and underbelly of my being, where it's just peaceful and quiet and dark and still and empty, finally empty. So that is a gift, right? This is one of the things that has come up for really clearly, is this is a stage, especially if you're a spiritual woman that has already done a lot of shadow work. There's a stage of working through your personal things, and you know, new personal things will obviously come up again. It's the spiral work, but it's less and less of that and more of the lineage work of what we carry through our blood, in our waters, in our physical body, from our lineage and from the collective, that is being asked to be released from the physical form, finally, because this is a very embodied transformation. And this is where we are also collectively, you've heard me say this, we are here to transform not just energetically in spirit, but the body, because the body is also energy. It's the densest form, but this is the place where the final release and transformation has to happen. So it's been a stage of deep release of grief and anger and pain. And also a stage of harvest. There's this place of harvesting, like the pain of our life and the sadness and the anger that hasn't been addressed, but also the harvesting and honoring and celebration of my life. I feel like that I've had these really beautiful experiences of, it's my experience of it has been of like doors opening, right, in my own being. I am someone that has gone through a lot of change. I've changed countries, I've changed homes, I've changed jobs, I've changed roles and archetypes. There's been a lot of life, death, rebirth in every possible form in my life, since I was a very little child. And I recognized that going through that, I had kind of shut the door at each one of those changes, right? Allowing me a clean start, right? And that worked until then. But arriving at this gateway, it was like all those doorways that I had closed, right, now became open. And there was a reweaving of my life and a sense of harvest. And again, this is not something I looked for. This is the beauty of the blood mysteries, when you're in tune with your womb and with the life current and your own essence, like all these things just kind of unfold from within you. So this actually happened driving. It was a vacation trip back to New York. And just as I was driving through the city, it was like the memories were flooding in, the gateways were being opened, and I could feel my spirit just kind of harvesting, right? Like reweaving these parts of self, right? Creating this new weave where everything is just integrated, and becoming new in its wholeness. I hope that's clear. again, so much of our journey through perimenopause is through the subtle realms. It's our inner language, our soul language, our communication through dreams and intuition and visioning and just our meditations. It all comes to weave together. But yeah, there's a harvesting and honoring and a sense of celebrating my life. And I feel like I'm able to have gratitude for my life in a different way. And I'm able to honor what I've done, what I've healed, what I've overcome, what I've learned, what I've created, how I've impacted others in the big and small ways that I do, that we do, all of us do as human beings. It's like all of that just was coming up in kind of neon colors to be seen, and also gathered up in the cornucopia of my being to be honored and celebrated and kept close. So even as this season feels very much like a coming apart, it also feels like a coming together. There's for me, a deep sense of coming home to myself even more, right? Of honoring who I am and honoring my own rhythms and values and purpose, now beyond any external expectations or opinions or possible judgments. There's a clarity of who I am, how I am designed to walk in the world, right? Who I'm here to be. And I find myself also in this new exploration of my relationship to the power within me and that flows through me. What does it mean for me to embody the queen archetype? How am I meant to anchor her in this stage of life? Right? And that's where I am. That's the query I am in this moment. And again, I'm just beginning this stage. I'm sure there is much, much more to be unveiled. And I would love to hear your stories too, because this is the reality. We are all mystical scientists, remembering the blood mysteries, remembering the deeper meaning and purpose of this deep stage of transformation. Each woman's transformation has medicine for the whole. So I would love to hear your deeper understanding of the stage, your aha moments. What's arising for you if you're in this stage, or if you've already gone through this stage and when you look back on it through this lensing and through this story. So that's it for now, my loves. With this, we complete the series. But again, I would love to hear from you if anything has resonated in your own stories. And also, if there's anything else you would like me to touch upon, be it about perimenopause or about any other season or about anything within the feminine mysteries, right? This space is for you, and I'd love to know what you would like to hear about next. And if you haven't done so already, please consider pressing like, share, and subscribe, and learning more with me through the offerings that you'll find in the description. As always, thank you for being a part of the remembrance of our feminine mysteries. I hope that what you have received through our time together has nourished and illuminated and catalyzed your own womb wisdom. You already hold everything you need within you, dear sister, and it is together that we remember. Many blessings, happy moon times until we meet again. Bye.